You may have seen a video that's a few years old from the National Lawyers Guild. It's been recirculating online again.
There's one thing that hasn't changed over 50 years, something that is so important to tell you kids who are new to this movement.
Shut the fuck up. You're sitting in the police transport van after a protest?
Shut the fuck up. In a holding cell with your comrades?
Shut the fuck up.
As more people take to the streets, we asked an attorney to help us understand what legal protections people actually have at protests. Here's what she said.
Hi, my name is Isabella Salomão Nascimento, and I'm an associate over at Ballard Spar in our media and entertainment group. Before I joined Ballard, I was a staff attorney for a few years at the ACLU of Minnesota. So we have a fundamental right in this country, and it's rooted in the First Amendment to the Constitution, that we have a right to protest, a right to speech, a right to bring grievances to our government. And one of the main ways that we see this, we have a long history of this in the United States, is through protest. And in particular, in going to a protest, the main things are, if you are in a public space, if you are in, for example, like our traditional, what we call traditional public fora, would be things like streets and sidewalks. Provided that things remain peaceful, you have a protected First Amendment right to lift your voice and use your voice to go out and protest. Now, where things get a little dicey is when you are, for example, protesting and maybe something is government property, but it's not public, it's not open to the public. You don't have the same rights unless the government has indicated that that is an open area to the public. The other area that you don't necessarily have rights to go onto and protest is to private property. If you think of the First Amendment on somewhat of a spectrum, we think of traditional peaceful protests where folks are marching in the streets or marching on the sidewalks as your quintessential, like one side of the spectrum, clearly protected First Amendment activity, whereas something like lighting cars on fire or destroying property would not necessarily be protected and would fall on the other side of the spectrum, in which that action traditionally gets law enforcement involved. Where things fall in between, just to give you one example, where you have a protest and for the most part the gathering is peaceful and just involves speaking out and lifting voices, but where you have folks who might otherwise be on the fringes and they are throwing things at officers or at buildings or whatever it may be, the line is a little fuzzy on whether at that point officers should just be targeting those discrete actors and removing them from the situation versus whether they can declare the entire assembly unlawful, for example, and issue a dispersal order. And at that point, the First Amendment kind of has to relent to public safety issues. A few kind of key protest guidelines, right? If you're gonna go out and protest, I definitely recommend sticking with a buddy, having somebody that you're going out there with so that if something happens to you or if you are arrested, someone else is aware that you were there and they can reach out to someone for help on your behalf. I would definitely be mindful of, as you are getting ready to go out to protest, what you are going to be wearing. Are you going to want to wear something that is really distinctive and calls attention to yourself and can make you easily identifiable in a crowd? Or do you want to wear something that blends in more so that you're not necessarily the one that they pluck out, for example? A few other things to keep in mind. Best practices, I would definitely go and in indelible ink or Sharpie, whatever it may be, write down key numbers in case you get arrested, in case they take your stuff, your phone, whatever it may be. And if you don't have those numbers memorized, you want them on your arm or somewhere else on you so that if you need to make a phone call later on, you have those contacts available to you. Related to that is to figure out what you actually want to bring with you to a protest. So for example, if you have stuff that is on you and you are arrested, they will probably take it and seize it and inventory it. In today's day and age where we can open cell phones with our fingerprints or our faces, I would definitely recommend disabling those settings when you're going out to a protest so that if you are arrested, law enforcement can't just hold up your phone or apply your thumbprint and be able to unlock and access everything that is in your phone. Even though they are not supposed to, I would definitely take precautions against that on the front end. You have a right to record what is going on in public, and particularly law enforcement activity in public spaces. That being said, to the extent that you are interfering with their ability to make the arrest because you are too close to them or you're getting in between them and the potential arrestee, that can open you up to arrest yourself. It's a little tricky about what the rights and obligations are when officers issue, for example, a dispersal order. A dispersal order has to actually be lawful in order to be effective. That being said, that's determined by a court of law down the road and hasn't been adjudicated at that moment. For safety purposes, the best practice is probably to disperse and to abide by officer instructions. If you are arrested, please don't try to talk your way out of it. I would exercise your right to remain silent, and I would tell them that you're only planning on talking to them with an attorney present and you want an attorney. Really, one of the last things I will say is, absent a search warrant, once you are in custody, if they have your things and they want to go through your phone, go through your backpack, other than to check, if they open it and see if you have a weapon or something that could hurt them, if they want to go into your things, particularly your cell phone, they need a search warrant. The only way that they can get around that is if you give them consent to search your stuff. They might ask for it, and they might ask for it in various tricky ways. You do not have an obligation to consent. You do not have to consent. Do not offer your consent. All of our rights here in the US flow from the First Amendment, from our ability to speak truth to power, to bring things to light, and to hold government to account. And so when that goes, we have to be worried that the rest of those constitutional rights and everything else in the Bill of Rights will go too. It is imperative that people are exercising and fighting for that First Amendment right.